would be deemed hypocritical.
We were all rolling, we were all taking Molly, and everyone was high, and I was so happy because I hadn't done that in like a year and a half, like a year or whatever. And but I was looking around being like, what are they going to see? Because this was not.
I haven't seen a case where so many investigations are swirling around the orbit of one individual.
Investigations of Adams Circle began last November, with federal agents searching the home of Adams' chief fundraiser, Brianna Suggs, as part of a probe into campaign donations with possible ties to the Turkish government. David Banks' unexpected retirement as New York City Schools chancellor at the end of this school year continues the resignations of Mayor Eric Adams' close circle, who are under investigations. Some political analysts say a lot of eyes on City Hall as of late have less to do with policy and more with who's next.
Well, the optics are awful.
David Shapiro was director of the Inspection and Oversight Program at John Jay College.
I haven't seen a case where so many investigations are swirling around the orbit of one individual in the name of the mayor.
On September 4th, federal investigators raided the Harlem home David Banks shares with his partner, First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright. Their electronic devices were also seized. Wright was appointed by Adams in 2023. Raids were conducted at the home of Philip Banks III, the chancellor's brother and current deputy mayor for public safety, as well as the home of former NYPD officer Timothy Pearson. Pearson is senior public safety advisor to Mayor Adams. Investigations of Adams Circle began last November, with federal agents searching the home of Adams' chief fundraiser, Brianna Suggs, as part of a probe into campaign donations with possible ties to the Turkish government. New York City Sheriff Anthony Miranda and his office are being investigated over money confiscated from illegal pot shops. Back in February, investigators searched the homes of Winnie Greco. Greco is the director of Asian Affairs. Former police commissioner Edward Caban resigned 2 weeks ago after his home was raided by the feds. His replacement, interim police commissioner Tom Donlin, says the FBI also searched his home soon after he was named. Neither the mayor nor any of those under investigation have been charged with any crime by federal or city investigators, to which Shapiro reminds that while the optics may be bad, people are innocent until proven guilty.
Because our system is based on the rule of law, which protects individuals from hasty judgments.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now among New York politicians who feel Adams should resign. The mayor says City Hall is cooperating with the investigations, and again, Mayor Adams has not been charged or accused of any wrongdoing.
He is now being indicted
and he was
for
a police
what
officer.
Sounds like public corruption, and he was a
police officer. And I think the most striking thing to me is if you just look at his childhood and his background. You know, he had skirmishes with the law when he grew up in a single-parent family, and then he ended up being able to rehabilitate himself and became a police officer and rose to the ranks of becoming the mayor of the biggest city in the United States. But to hear these types of allegations potentially and charges, it doesn't sound like it's a one-off. The other thing I had heard was that potentially they were bundling campaign funds together and then they were reimbursing people for those funds, which is, I guess, a violation of campaign fundraising. So earlier today, AOC called for his resignation, and I was wondering if that had something to do with anything or if she had prior knowledge, but it's just very sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the circumstances were starting to collapse on Eric Adams. It is a question now of what happens next. Does he resign? Does he get pushed out by the governor, Kathy Hochul? Right. What happens now? Because the pressure is mounting.
Yeah, well, right now, I think the question of who's running New York City is a legitimate one. And for Eric Adams, I mean, if you've been following this, I don't think anyone is surprised that it has come to this point. And, you know, he's been very arrogant throughout all of this, knowing that these things have been swirling around, right? Self-pride comes before a fall. And I think this is a perfect example of that in politics with Eric Adams. And it is a shame because he does have a great American story, as Gretchen mentioned, of overcoming his childhood and to become the mayor of the greatest city in the world, in my opinion. And but you can't do this with corruption. And the Southern District of New York would not have made a move like this unless they were pretty rock solid on the evidence that they had. And once your phones are seized by the feds, that's never a good sign. And so we all know that that had happened. And the fact that it's coming from multiple fronts is also highly problematic. I don't see how he stays, but then again, in the era of Donald Trump, where you deny, I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to stay and it puts the governor of New York in a situation. What does she do then?
And there were some interesting parallels in his statement that he put out about the government coming after him. I think it paralleled a lot of what President Trump has talked about
he said,
with the government coming after him.
He said, I always knew if I stood my ground for New Yorkers that I would be a target, and a target I became.
And I think it'll be interesting to see, obviously, what comes out tomorrow when they unseal the indictment, and of course, whether he does ultimately resign, because sources close to Kathy Hochul are saying that they aren't going to push her out from the state level. So we'll see what happens. I think he resigns, but remains to be seen.
Or if he goes to jail. Or if he has bail. I mean, we have no idea what's going to happen to him.
I mean, is it a mistake for him to sort of like nod to some kind of conspiracy? Because one of the things that John Miller kind of pointed out, if you're listening closely to what he said, is that all of these other kind of mini scandals that are unfolding in the Eric Adams administration, they are being investigated by all these different authorities. They're coming at it from all sides. The idea that that is some kind of grand conspiracy, well, I would like to see that wizard. That would be an incredibly powerful wizard.
Same wizard that Mark Robinson apparently visited him as well.
Apparently.
Listen, it's pretty jarring, hearing this tonight. I grew up in New York. You sort of idolize New York as sort of the image that you want of America. More facts are going to come out tomorrow, but Adams has a difficult path ahead of him. I mean, the calls for resignation are going to be overwhelming, and if he chooses to fight, he chooses to fight. I think people choose to fight all the time. I remember during the Clinton era, he chose to fight an impeachment. It wasn't a criminal charge, but the line has been set. If you fight, you line up your allies and you move forward. I suspect that's what Adams, if he makes that decision, that's how it's set up.
And he should be careful, because now he's going to be a criminal defendant who's going to be indicted in federal court in the Southern District. And he's, making all these sort of campaign slogan-y statements. I'm going to fight for the people of New York, and I'm going to continue to fight, and I'm an innocent, almost like he's a victim here. But you don't get a federal indictment for nothing. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And I'm not saying he's guilty of anything. We haven't seen the indictment.
More news, more New York officials calling on Mayor Eric Adams to resign here because of all of this. I want to put this up. You see there from the New York Times that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said Eric Adams should resign as mayor of New York City for the good of the city. Because she becomes the most prominent Democrat to push for his ouster amid federal corruption investigations involving his administration. So, AOC says this: I do not see how Mayor Adams can continue governing New York City. The flood of resignations and vacancies are threatening government function. Nonstop investigations will make it impossible to recruit and retain a qualified administration. That's just part of her statement there on social media. Linda Schmidt has the new statement. Mayor Eric Adams firing back at AOC here. We have it. Let's take that live here. Let's take that full. This is how Mayor Adams is responding to this, saying for anyone who self-righteously claims people charged with serious crimes should not be in jail, to now say that the second black mayor of New York should resign because of rumors and innuendo without even a single charge being filed is the height of hypocrisy. I am leading this city to protect it from exactly that kind of phony politics. The people of this city elected me to fight for them, and I will stay and fight no matter what. Okay, we are getting some breaking news in right now. This is quite something. Okay, this is coming to us from the New York Times. And this is quite stunning. I had just said in this entire story that we have been covering that no indictments, no charges had yet been filed in all of this scandal going on in New York City, in the mayor's office, City Hall, the NYPD, the New York City Public Schools. The New York Times has it right now that Mayor Eric Adams of New York City was indicted following a federal corruption investigation. That's according to people briefed on the case here. This is breaking right now. This is quite stunning here. We just read out that statement from the mayor firing back at AOC. AOC becoming the first New York member of Congress to call on Adams to resign. There are, though, in Albany, several state lawmakers who have already done just that, calling on Adams to resign. AOC becomes the first U.S. House member from the New York delegation to do just that. Now, Mayor Eric Adams of New York City has been indicted following a federal corruption investigation. Remember, he first came to power as mayor back in 2021 after winning that election there. And so we don't know what that indictment says. This is just from the New York Times. We're going to wait to see if other outlets confirm it, like the Associated Press. We're waiting on sources here at Fox as well to confirm what we just brought to you, as well as Fox 5 there in New York. And we'll wait to see from the mayor's office what their response is to this. And once that indictment, whenever it is unsealed, we'll have to look at what charges Adams is facing here. But that is the news right now. Mayor Eric Adams of New York City facing weeks of mounting pressure, with almost everyone in his orbit being swept up into these scandals that have plagued the Big Apple for months.
Tonight, New York City's former COVID czar fired from his private sector job after he was caught on hidden camera admitting he attended multiple sex parties during the pandemic in defiance of his own public safety protocols.
Do you think you'd have gotten like a hard time if New York City found out that you were having sex parties during COVID?
Dr. J. Varma appears to have been secretly recorded in this heavily edited undercover video released by conservative podcaster Steven Crowder. In this clip, discussing taking MDMA and aware that his actions, if made public, would be deemed hypocritical.
We were all rolling, we were all taking Molly, and everybody was high, and I was so happy because it hadn't done that in like a year and a half, like a year or whatever. And but I was looking around being like, I wonder if they see they're going to do, because this was not COVID friendly.
Varma was a high-profile senior public health advisor during then Mayor Bill de Blasio's administration, making daily appearances.
I was on TV for about a year and a half. So I was on a press conference every day for a year and a half, every morning at 10 o'clock.
Instructing the public to stay home and practice social distancing.
We need to be cautious about introducing a high-risk activity into a place that we know is vulnerable.
Varma was also instrumental in helping the mayor craft the city's vaccine policy.
But if you're unvaccinated, unfortunately, you will not be able to participate in many things. That's the point we're trying to get across.
Which even kept Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving off the court after he refused to get the shot.
I just think he's passive. It's ass because he's like trying to like I'm not in a position to tell him how to dribble better or how to shoot better. Don't tell me like how the science works.
Varma issuing a statement Friday in light of the video's release, saying in part, "Unfortunately, I was targeted by an operative for an extremist right-wing organization determined to malign public health officials and take down the public health system in America." Varma also admitting he took part in 2 public gatherings, saying, "I take responsibility for not using the best judgment at the time." The fallout leading to termination from his job at Siga Technologies, a pharmaceutical company where he served as executive vice president and chief medical officer. The company did not respond to multiple requests for comment. A spokesperson for Varma would not comment on the firing.
My God, what a hypocrite he is.
One Democratic city council member, not holding back, slamming Varma.
When he's caught, he's blaming the right-wing media. I mean, this guy is, what a dirtbag.
A city spokesperson confirming in a statement Varma is not and has never been a member of the current administration, while some are calling on Mayor Eric Adams to retroactively compensate city workers who were fired for violating COVID mandates Varma helped put in place.
People chose not to follow those rules, and his behavior doesn't change the fact that we save lives because of the rules that were put in place.
All right, Valerie Castro joins us now. Valerie, just to clear these things up here. So he's fired from his job, whatever he was working at recently. He worked in the de Blasio administration, not the Adams administration.
Right.
But you were pointing out, like in your piece, some people had to resign or were fired because of their behavior during COVID, while this guy's out there, I think, as he said, taking Molly and going to these parties.
And that city council member that spoke out, he also said that people lost their businesses when they refused to follow some of these COVID protocols that were put in place by Dr. Varma. Some city council members are calling for there to be an investigation into all of that, what happened. But again, Mayor Adams kind of shying away from willing to compensate anyone who may have lost their jobs during that time.
Okay.